Okay. Fujifilm. Fuji! I like this. Go say Fuji! I took my X-T2, did a lecture along with a 56mm and 18-135. So, Nokoshita is extremely reliable. And I hope you all remember I predicted this many months ago. Because Fujifilm, by their own admission, is selling the hell and back out of cameras. So Nokoshita is reporting that the X-T3 has been registered as being made in China. Well, isn't that interesting? Now, I have a couple X-T2s. I'm not connected to Fujifilm in any way. And let's first start off by stating the fact that I have, not unendingly, but rather often, jabbed at China. However, my favorite, and I used to fix laptops. I've owned more laptops than, God, everybody out there. My favorite laptops, and also the ones that have the best longevity, are made in China at Foxconn for Apple. Whether you like Apple or not, I don't care. The laptops have the best resale value, and they last longer than other laptops do. Am I a big fan of stuff made in China? I am not. As long as the quality control is really high, that's fine. It's like the kind of quality control we have out of Apple notebooks. I'm all for it. It is the case that the X-T2, and I read comments everywhere. Everybody say, "Oh, make a video about this." Like, fine. That you and the other people's comments that I read don't realize that the X-T2, well, most people obviously don't own the GFX, is not Fujifilm's flagship camera anymore. Fujifilm's own words are that the X-H1 is our, meaning Fujifilm's, flagship camera. Okay, so Fujifilm has two flagship cameras currently, the GFX and the X-H1, with another one to come along the way, which will be their rangefinder medium format. Surely so, it's going to be made in Japan. I mean, there's not a chance that their medium format rangefinder is going to be made anywhere other than Japan. So everybody now is complaining to me, like, make a video on this. They're complaining of Fujifilm over what Nikon and Canon have been doing for decades now. You know how expensive the $3,300 Nikon D850 is that I have? It was made in Thailand. That is also not a not a Nikon flagship camera. It's not. So when all is said and done, this time next year sometime, when the X-T3 pops out, if Nokoshita is correct, which they probably are, and the X-T3 is made in China, Fujifilm will still have more flagship cameras made in Japan than Nikon or Canon does. Yeah. It's interesting to note that Fujifilm, now that they've had drastic increases in sales, and the fact that Japan manufacturing facilities, as others who know this for a fact that live in Japan, two people I know who live in Japan, say that they're limited for space on GFX manufacture, all these lens manufacturing. Obviously, I'm only speculating on this, the new rangefinder medium format camera, and the X-H1, to outsource those cameras, the X-T3 manufacturer, to China. Now, here's an X-T2 which took a dunk in the ocean. All of this stuff is going to be made in the same place as the X-T2 was. The main board, the sensor. This is the EVF, by the way. This is magnified quite a lot. This is the little TV screen that you're looking at when you look in your viewfinder. This was from an X-T2. The shutter mech, all of the important parts are going to be made in the same places they always were. Okay? I have no idea where they're going to make the cast magnesium chassis for the X-T3 at, which obviously it will be. But I'm pretty sure that there's no issue with less expensive labor assembling the X-T3 camera in China. And let's just admit it. You know you're going to buy it, right? You know you're going to buy it. So here's a couple quotes that I read from other people. It's kind of indicative of some of the lip flapping. For me, this is a deal breaker. I'm going to move to another company. Like who? Fujifilm, by the way, the X-T20 is not made in Japan. I don't own an X-T20, except I own so many Fujifilm cameras. Nikon? Nikon's super expensive flagship cameras made in Japan. Everything else, Thailand. Canon? So what people are complaining about is that Fujifilm's going to be doing the same thing that Nikon and Canon are doing to stay cost competitive in a shrinking market where everybody's using cell phones now for their photography. You're going to complain to Fujifilm that they're going to make, their X-T3, presumably, assuming Nokoshita is correct, in China? So what? Let's see. I want to include newer technology. And if it is the case, from what I've heard, that the X-T3 will have some really awesome technology in it to stay price competitive with Nikon, who we all know they're going to announce their new mirrorless camera, probably at Photokina, but it won't release until next year, to stay super price competitive and blow Nikon's socks out of the water. It's necessary for Fujifilm to do that. Did you really think that now that Fujifilm has two flagship cameras, which are undeniably their GFX, obviously that is, and their XH1, that's Fujifilm's own words. XH1 is our flagship camera. That they're gonna, the X-T2/X-T3 is not Fujifilm's flagship camera anymore. That's not my opinion, not my belief. That's a fact. So, are you begrudging? Let me listen to this. Now, Fujifilm obviously is a company that still has to stay in business by making money. So, are you begrudging Fujifilm, the opportunity to stay in business and be price competitive with Canon and Nikon, real camera companies, as opposed to Sony? Are you, let's be logical here. Just logical for a little bit here. Yeah, that makes sense. All this stuff's going to be made in the same place as it ever was. You know that and I know that. Main board, sensor. So you're upset over them screwing it together with a larger assembly line as opposed to... Was it the Sendai plant in Japan? I don't know if all the Fujifilm lenses are made there, just Fujifilm lenses and cameras. Forgive me on my ignorance about this. I think there's two different facilities in Japan. But apparently they're already, and I've read reports of this, that they're already chocked to the gills to keep up demand. And that's why they've also started making the 18 to 55 millimeter Fujifilm lens. Also in the Philippines, and ramping up their Philippine production facility for the manufacture of some of their most popular kit lenses, like the 18 to 55. People have always thought that the X-T2 is the Fuji flagship camera. And it was, but it is not anymore. That's a hardcore fact. This is only proof of the incredible sales that Fujifilm has been reporting on, and I've heard this from sales reps passing through. I talked to them like, yeah, the sales are just incredible. Fujifilm themselves, a few months ago, couldn't even believe, even though it's it's not an expensive camera. It's expensive fundamentally, but for medium format, it's really cheap. But Fujifilm, by their own admission, they didn't say these exact words, but Fujifilm's been selling the absolute hell and back out of their GFX camera, a relatively expensive camera. It's not expensive at all for medium format. So, as long as quality control is there, and I've given down the road on Chinese stuff all the time, but some of my favorite products are Chinese manufacture. My MacBooks, my iMac. Not worried about it. Quality control and production standards are there. It's not an issue. Fujifilm, like it or not, has to be competitive with Nikon and Canon. And like Nikon and Canon, absolutely no difference. And all of those, by the way, people say, well, I've heard this comment several times too. Oh, Fujifilm's a Japanese company. What are they making their big-time product in China for? You don't mistake me here, but Canon and Nikon and Fujifilm are all Japanese companies. And only their top models, like the GFX, which I have, and their XH1, and likewise for Nikon, likewise for Canon, only their top models are made in Japan. That's what they are all doing to stay competitive, to stay alive, to keep the money flowing such that they're all financially competitive in a shrinking camera market. Nothing I said in this video is inaccurate. You may disagree with this video, you may hate me for saying it, But just look yourself in the mirror and say, is anything that fat tattooed guy said untrue in this video? And the answer is no. The answer is no. No. The answer is no. So, I even said this to people months and months ago. I forget which video it was I said it in. I think I said it in 2 different videos. I said, when Fujifilm gets much more competitive and, you know, they start expanding their products, which I knew they were selling like gangbusters, I said Fujifilm is going to, their X-T3 is probably going to be manufactured in to China to stay price competitive. I did not know at that time that Fujifilm would have a replacement flagship camera. And the H2, whenever that comes along in the future, will integrate in all the new stuff. Then all the new stuff in the X-T3 obviously is going to reintegrate itself into the XH1, whenever the hell that drops, sometime in the distant future. And this is Fujifilm's flagship camera. Those are their words, by the way, not mine. So, yeah, there we go. Peace out, Girl Scout. Thank you. Namaste, увидимся, aloha, пока, до свидания, all that good stuff. Fuji.